a range of things that have been talked about formally and informally, for decades really, in terms of funding for parks and in this case specifically GSP. My goal is to talk through these really quickly so we can get some discussion and some ideas and hopefully not have to get caught in the weeds too much unless they're really good weeds. The first one is a biogenic public utility. Sounds pretty weird. It kind of is, but when you think about it, it's a great idea. The notion being that currently we have utilities that actually charge rates and fees for the services they provide, and we actually know very well that our forests provide a lot of services, and yet we're not paying for them. And so this would establish a utility that should levy rates and fees for the services provided by our forests. It's pretty abstract and would need a lot of details to make it work. It hasn't really worked anywhere, so that's a good sign that it might not work here. But in concept, it's an interesting way to be thinking about what we're getting and what we're paying for. Watershed mitigation. This, like any other mitigation fee, we'd be talking about impact on watershed. You pay to a bank, and with that money, use it to pay for support of the forest elsewhere. Carbon sequestration credits. So there's viable carbon markets now in the world. There's one in California, there's one in Quebec. These are things that foreseeably you could pay into in the sense with our forests. They have carbon value, it's of value, and could be bought by a market, and then others would actually pay money back to keep that forest intact and improving it. So there's a couple of different ways it would work. You can get paid for, in our case, it would be improvement over a baseline. So we would be assessed a baseline for the forest. Any carbon growth over that, we would be paid out in cash. It's a model. It works in theory. I haven't seen any public entities use it. Lots of private landowners are exploring it. Canopy mitigation, similar concept. This as a watershed, but we're losing canopy, not just in the parks, but through development, private property, et cetera, et cetera. The notion here would be that if I were to cut down a tree, I'd pay into a fund to help replace that canopy. That fund could then be drawn upon by GSP to complete the work of building this new canopy. Corporate adopt a forest. This is a good one. There's lots of folks who have money and perhaps they want to put their money on a forest. Details could go a lot of different ways. You could have a corporate relationship set up where you have a lot of work taking place, or you could just have simply name only and some funds exchange. Sponsorship programs, similar, perhaps better worded.
Now we're talking about funding Green Seattle.
Yeah.
We're not talking about parks changing funding.
These could be used for parks in general. I'm speaking specifically of Green Seattle.
Well, why haven't you done something?
These things are.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Some of them.
Some of them have.
Some of them,
we
yeah, some have.
So what have you done?
Let's let him keep going. So we
Hesitate when there's one you've done.
Okay. So sponsorships, we do have sponsorships. We have sponsors for Green Seattle Day, and in that form we have the corporate sponsors that help pay for work we do.
I don't think there's any sponsors under that. They're just volunteers.
Countywide levy. So King County just actually got through the process, so we're not in good timing with it, but conceivably we could go in for a levy much like we were talking with the Parks Legacy Plan, but at a much bigger scale. We'd bring in other folks in the county itself. So we'd be approaching it with a new group of constituents. Fees or rates. This is a little more straightforward. It could be a lot of things. One we've looked into a lot is stormwater. But again, we have our forest providing services, and we have the potential in some ways to be capturing rates or fees for those services. So We have utility that's governing stormwater, and we know our forests help with that. We have a utility that's governing public health, and we know our forests help with that. We have a utility that's governing our electricity usage, and we know our forests help with that. So there's lots of potential feedback mechanisms where we could work in rates conceivably into funding our forest restoration. Conservation Futures is a state program that's been established for a long time and has been used for conservation projects at the state level, usually big scale conservation. Using it at urban scale is a lot more untested, but not improbable.
Sorry, we need to wrap up this.
Yep.
Maybe just go really quickly. I mean, some of the rest of these are, I mean, we're already using the REIT right now. That's what's feeding the capital. So that's something that's happening. Backup, just to answer your question, obviously we've explored, but a little bit more short-lived, not as much long-term corporate, sponsorship. We have corporations coming out, but that is, those are sort of one-offs right now. There's not like a solid sponsorship for the entire program for the whole 20 years. We have just begun doing a little bit more work on the carbon front. Weston Porters are managing voluntary carbon dedication, are you saying? Sorry, so corporations are signing up to basically provide some trees for various projects. And then we're just now sort of getting into looking at on the state level. That's something that Doug's been exploring a little bit with some other folks. And we have received federal funding. It is a lot of work, I tell you, to keep up with all of the rules and regulations and the paperwork. You end up spending a good percentage of your funding just doing all the administrative work, but it has been what has really helped this program out a lot. Endowment, that would have to be a really huge endowment. And then a lot of these are market-based solutions. So we wanted to just show you this. So this is a lot of thought that's been going on, but we tend to pick one or two or three to try and move forward, and maybe move forward at different times. So,
how did impact fees not make it on there? Because if you charge $242 per bedroom, and then you have a 400-unit high-rise, you're going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars, so that the new residents that move to this city from another city will then pay for the new parks that are needed in the future. So that is this elephant in the room, and it's a big smoke screen, because the developers have fought tooth and nail against impact fees, because they will have to sell their projects for more money, because the city will have to provide services for those new residents. So the fact that it's not on this list is pretty significant to me.
I'm sorry we kind of flew through it, but we summarized fees and rates. And we also did talk about
the canopy mitigation fund was actually where I was targeting, and I was speaking specifically.
But you're right. You could have called it out.
We could have called it out in your contract.
But nobody ever threw mud in the developer's face and said $242 per bedroom, which is an accepted number. And when you start talking hard numbers, then this is something that you can vote on. You guys have a bunch of concepts here that you can't even explain. So what we need is something that is concise and a number where the developers are going to have to pay their share finally.
Yep. And I think the part of the process we're doing today is gathering input so we can target. I mean, there is a million ideas out there, and yes, none of these are fleshed out. There is nothing tied to them specifically. We're not there yet. We have some great notions with the levy, with the Parks District. We know where our funding is with REIT. We're getting a little bit of money right now from SPU as a rate money, but besides that, none of this is fleshed out. And so today we're going to talk about ideas and maybe get a list of, what are the two or three that are worth digging into and exploring more and getting those specifics that will take them to reality.
Like, where's the 242 come from? Just
That's an old number. That's a very old number.
So what, if we wanted to follow up on that, where would we go? Can you suggest a resource to get to a number to?
I can't give you a source right now.
Okay.
So we heard
from Doug.
Solon, and they seem to have very well fleshed out the park district concept. But I didn't hear them say how Greenfield partnership would benefit.
So how would Green Scale Partnership benefit in the Parks District? you guys, have you had, I believe that it's been called a, are you asking specifically, Bonnie, on the park district?
Well, yes,
model?
he seemed to know a lot about the park district model, so, and this is supposed to be, you know, going on forever. And so there must be something in there that he's here talking to us, who are part of the Green Seattle Partnership, asking for our support. So he should be able to tell us how that's going to help your goal of that, what, 52 million?
So I would actually probably take it to the folks who are more experts in actually putting the investment initiatives together, because there's lots of funding scenarios we could create, and we've thought of some, but part of what's happening in the Parks Legacy Plan process is that Christopher Williams and team have been really thoughtful in asking partners kind of what is your ideal situation, kind of what would a good investment look like, and where should we focus? And so the committee now has kind of this list of potential investments, and there are different ranges, different efforts. GSP is part of that, but part of that, figuring out that is kind of what does the package really look like, and how much can be positioned where. But you might want to add on to that.
So Doug can talk about the specifics for Green Seattle Partnership, but Sullivan's right. So we put together a list of 37 different funding initiatives. Community centers, major maintenance backlog, lifelong recreation, urban farming and pea patches, support for the Green Seattle Partnership. So there's 37 different things that we've put on the list that range from $200,000 to $15 million each. The total list is about $70 million. The Legacy Committee that's meeting tomorrow night has that list, and they're going to start going through a process to prioritize what things, to develop a priority list of those 37 potential funding elements. After they've done that, so they'll do that preliminarily tomorrow night. In October, they're going to hear presentations and they're going to discuss the funding mechanism. So is the Metropolitan Park District make sense? Is a short-term levy? Is a long-term levy? Is bonded indebtedness? So what funding mechanism makes the most sense for those funding initiatives? To have a public hearing on November 7th where people can come in and talk about both the prioritized list of initiatives and the funding mechanism. And they'll make a recommendation, a preliminary recommendation in mid-December. There'll be more public meetings in January and February. They'll make their final recommendations to the council in March. The city council will vote by the 1st of May whether or not to put something on the ballot for the primary in August. And so all of that says that there's a piece of that, whatever that funding recommendation will include the Green Seattle Partnership, above and beyond what we already have committed to the Green Seattle Partnership. We saw that gap in a couple of different places, both in the capital and in the long-term maintenance. And so the two of the initiatives address how this would address that gap for the Green Seattle Partnership. So those are two things out of 37 different funding initiatives that the committee is going to be talking about, which is then to go back to Doug's slide. People need to be talking to the committee about the importance of funding the Green Seattle Partnership, at least partially through this mechanism, regardless of whether it's a levy, short-term, long-term.
Can I ask who you are?
Sorry. Eric Friedley, the acting deputy superintendent of Parks.
Thank you, Eric. So, I guess this was really ambitious because there has been but I do hope that we met at least the first objective was to become a little bit more informed about some of those different options that are out there. And I know it can be very confusing hearing these different park funding plans and knowing which one's which, and also just knowing which one is best or which one you think would work best. So there's still a lot more to cover. I would say one thing is that, we'll be sure to add more clearly impact fees to our list of other possible options. And as shareholders, one thing that we're trying to do is also just, this is sort of a minor thing right now, but so I have these cards where we're asking folks last year at this time, Our shareholders filled these out asking City Council to continue funding the Green Seattle Partnership. And the City Council did approve additional funding, which was around the tune of $1 million over the next, how much?
It was $1 million in the council and $1 million from the mayor.
$1 million from the council and $1 million from the mayor. Total. And, sorry. Anyway, so we want to, now what we're going to do is kind of do that same routine, but thank the City Council and just keep them knowing that we think that this is an important program to keep funding, regardless of these different mechanisms that end up happening. So, yes, Mark.
Could I just want to address one, I would think, major concern here is that we've been looking at these initiatives for a long time in terms of trying to find funding for the Green Seattle Partnership. It's a different thing. It's not the same thing. It's a different body of work, as we described. So really what we're trying to do is just explain to you that we're not just sitting on our hands about this issue. We are actually out there looking for additional funding sources. And we are working with the City Council, we're working with the mayor, we're working with within the city, within parks. We're working with the Seattle Public Utilities, we're working with different sponsorships. I don't know if all of you know, we have a